Superman stands for hope. Question is that gonna be enough to save the DC universe? Multiple directors and writers have provided us with different adaptations of the character on the big screen, like Richard Donner, Bryan Singer, and most notably, Zack Snyder.
Why did you say that?
Each with its own style and way of developing the character. But there are three main pillars that set the latest Superman director apart. Qualities that don't just make him different, they make him the ideal choice to not only revive, but completely rebuild the entire DC universe. So then, what makes him so special? Let's begin with the first pillar.
Knowledge.
James Gunn knows Superman. He has revealed countless times how he wants to portray a version of the superhero very akin to the comic books and true to the character. Just listen to this.
And thinking about how could I create a Superman that's true to the character of Superman, that absolutely loves the character of Superman, and yet is a take on Superman that's different enough that it's worth making a big budget movie about it.
Would you look at that? This is actually pretty interesting, because with previous directors who have tackled the character, especially Snyder, with its dark and gritty vibe, you could tell that they didn't really know the character. Or maybe they did, but didn't want to portray every little detail from the comics onto the big screen by changing his suit, his emotions, and setting aside the playfulness and kindness that he's supposed to have. This is of course excluding some projects like Superman and Lois or Richard Donner's version of Superman, played by Christopher Reeve, which Gunn has confirmed to be inspired by to make his own version.
But I'm definitely influenced by what Donner did with Superman and what Christopher Reeve did with Superman. And Margot Kidder, who's fantastic in the movie. She's really the heart of it in a lot of ways.
This to most fans seems like the best approach he could take. And here's why. Kal-El isn't the man he is only because of his colorful suit, his superpowers, and his funny curl. He's also human. Actually he's Kryptonian. Man, shut the f***. His parents raised him to be human. And yes, we see Henry Cavill's Superman being raised as a human too. Kinda. But he's lacking one thing that James explains perfectly in his interview.
Spirit. The thing they don't talk about much when they talk about Christopher Reeve, they talk about his pureness, his hope, his goodness. But there's this playfulness about Superman. This, when he's saving a cat, he's got that wry smile.
Just compare that to this. This is a god. Superman is not a god, at least not as much as he is a human. And Gunn knows this. That's why I think this Superman is gonna be perfect. He's embracing everything that makes the character beloved by so many people, like his humanity, his kindness, and the pure hope he gives off whenever he's saving the day.
I'm not messing around, I'm doing important stuff.
Without setting aside the powerful and absolute machine that he actually is. Nice. So Gunn understands the character. But anyone can read a couple of comics and know Superman, just like many of us. That's where the second pillar comes in.
Reputation.
James Gunn is known for making superhero movies, but are they any good? Guardians of the Galaxy is a good place to start, since it's a movie about characters that, at the time, weren't nearly as popular as Iron Man or Captain America. But Gunn was able to tell a story that made us care for these guys, with a perfect back and forth between comedy.
I have part of a plan.
What percentage of a plan?
I don't know, 12%. 12%?
And heartfelt moments that leave you wanting to see more of these characters. Something similar happens with the Suicide Squad, where a group of nobodies join forces only to end up becoming friends that care for one another. Most of them, at least. The point is, these movies might not deserve an Oscar, but they do have to be praised for how good they managed to be, despite having a cast of characters nobody cared about. So, what happens when people do care? Now it gets interesting. Just Superman alone is gonna bring people in to see the movie, which might put a lot of pressure on the studio. But as Gunn said, he's not even nervous anymore.
I love the script and people love the script. And so I feel great about the script. I felt a shitload of pressure at the beginning. Yeah, so now I feel good about it. So now it's fun.
He knows that the characters and stories which he can play with in this movie allow him to open a whole new world of opportunities. And based on his previous projects, he's gonna deliver a movie where the balance between the humanity of the characters, the jokes, and the epic moments will be managed perfectly. Why am I so sure? Because he managed to make a shark who can barely talk
Enjoy books so much.
feel human. Because he could make a couple of characters that have nothing to do with each other have one of the most underrated friendships in the MCU.
I am hideous?
You are horrifying to look at, yes.
and because he could constantly throw jokes
Open the fucking door.
into a movie whose plot revolved around one of the most loved characters of the saga literally dying. So although it's my opinion, I fully trust Gunn. And if you do too, feel free to tell me in the comments. And once you're out there, consider subscribing since it really helps me a ton. Thanks! Okay, back to the pillars. Previous Superman directors weren't particularly fans of the character or the universe they were set to create. But Gunn is. He grew up with superheroes, specifically Superman.
A movie that changed my life, and that's Richard Donner's Superman. It's a great movie, but it was also a movie I saw as a kid that affected my life a lot, and I remember seeing it at the Pear Cinema in Manchester, Missouri when it was first released.
See? He's just like one of us. And that goes a long way. The third pillar is that Gunn is as much a fan as any of you watching this video. He cares for the character, the universe, and its legacy. He's determined to stick to the classics and the original feel that Superman had, with trunks and everything. Anyone who says that this is a downgrade from this, although I respect them and I do agree that it looks cooler, clearly misunderstands the true essence of what makes Superman, well, Superman. Gunn is not set on just making a cool Superman movie that barely makes up the budget and gets him his paycheck. He's just as excited for this movie as we are.
Because of that, I kept thinking about it and thinking about it and thinking about it. So now I feel good about it. So now it's fun.
And if this isn't a green flag, I don't know what is. However, any director can be a fan of Superman, right? Not really. There's a big difference between the comics approach and the Snyder's approach. Zack Snyder's version of the character mostly reaches to the comics for his origin story, but little else. While Gunn, on the other hand, goes all in with the colors, the curl, the trunks, the S, which already exists by the way, and as the true Superman fan that he is, he understands why Superman is loved by many people, especially children. Back in the late 70s, when Christopher Reeves made its debut as Superman, it was mostly children buying his toys and reaching out to him, and they didn't see him as a god, but as a friend they could trust. Since Gunn was also a kid who grew up with that very same Superman who's known for his kindness and hope, him out of all people knows who Superman really is. Not an alien who decided to protect Earth, but a human who loves his planet and would give his life to protect it. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next one.